Number 7, Professor Jen here in our virtual classroom, writing seminar, week number 7. Good evening to you, a little brief lecture this evening. I wanted to touch base with you as I've been getting in the Dropbox, which I asked for, all of these outlines and significant amounts of work because you're in your research phase. And in fact, one of you, surprisingly, already completed your term project, which was beautiful, and you received your grade from me. So I was happy to receive it, even though it was really early, but it was very well done. A couple little housekeeping issues, just to remind you that on week number 11, by Friday, I will need all of your questions of the week sent to me in a file prepared, and that will be acting as our final examination because there isn't a formal one for this class. Another thing, two of you asked me something very interesting because apparently you realize that I teach for criminal justice and women and gender studies as well. You know, for some of you that are freshmen and sophomores, it's not too late to pick up a minor or a concentration, and that would be in either criminal justice or in women and gender studies. So if you'd like to do that, I suggest that you call either Dr. Laverne McQuiller-Williams, who's the chair of the Criminal Justice Department, or Deborah Blizzard, Dr. Blizzard rather, who's the chair of Women and Gender Studies, and see what the curriculum is, because sometimes with some of these concentrations and minors, you need like 5 classes in order to have that, and it does suit you quite well to sometimes be able to show, depending on what your major, that you're able to do other things in addition to what your primary area of study is. Before I continue this evening, I would like to thank Captioning Services, as they always do a wonderful job for us, and I couldn't do it without them. A brief lecture I'm going to offer you tonight on the aspect of writing as an occupation, as an academic pursuit, and certainly as we're wrapping up this course in a matter of a few weeks. And I must say it's been a pleasure to instruct you and to be with you in this virtual paradise. Anyway, writing is one of these things that you're going to probably have figured out by now, that you really can't pull an all-nighter and feel successful, because it's a process. And the purpose of having a process is so you can take a break from something. Let me give you an example. And I'm just going to use an example that works for me. I'm not really an athletic person, but I do enjoy working out. And I really can't, for a half hour, just continue to be on one machine because I get very bored. I guess I have exercise ADHD. I don't know what my problem is, but like I say, I get bored easily. So I like to change it up a little. And by changing it up a little, sometimes I do one machine, then I do another little machine, then I do something else, then I do a little stretching. And somehow or another, by the end of the evening, I have a 30-minute workout. And sometimes this is very similar to writing. Most people, most writers, Hemingway, Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Emily Dickinson, they didn't write all in one piece. Very often they wrote as a course of process, and over time, and sometimes many years. I remember when I was in college like you, I didn't start out, by the way, as an English major. I was a science major, believe it or not. And back in the 1980s, women were really not encouraged to be in the sciences. I'll tell you a quick funny story. And I was in a chemistry lab, and it was called Commercial Chemistry for Better Living. This happened to be at SUNY Oswego, circa 1983. And I remember we had this project in chemistry, and we all had to go around the room and talk about what it is we wanted to design and implement. And I had said, being one of 2 women in the entire program of 90-something men, I said, I would like to design a soap, a liquid soap that smells like vanilla or strawberry, peach, whatever, and I'd like it to be in a pump, and I would like to be able to sell it to women, especially as a hand soap. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy, and they said, well, nobody's going to buy soap that smells like fruits and in a hand pump, Jennifer, so why don't you find something else to research and to develop. So of course I guess I'm not laughing today in 2013. Why? Because there's tons of liquid soap around and they all smell like kiwi, cucumbers, and strawberries. So I think I was onto something. So when I first became an English major, I was very overwhelmed with all this writing because I thought to myself, my God, I'm not a writer. I don't know if I want to be a writer. But the beauty of writing is that when one writes well, one is usually someone that's able to incorporate various ideas, put them together, and present them well. And regardless of your major, it's going to serve you well to write well, not to write good, to write well. So I leave you this evening with a few thoughts as we work into the momentum of this paper, that certainly if it's something that you need to take a breather from, I built it into the syllabus so you would have enough time, of course, to walk away from your assignment, have a little bit of a respite, R-E-S-P-I-T-E, a respite, and then walk back over to it and begin writing. I also found when I wrote my thesis, which was a very boring 131 pages, real snoozer, I felt that it was wise for me to write it in mini chunks because I just couldn't even grasp the number of all these pages that I had to begin writing. People, I'm sure in high school told you about these index cards and how you have to keep everything separate for your quotations. If you have a system that you developed, use whatever system that works for you. For me, the index cards, they're very nice, but they never worked for me because I didn't quite know where to put them. So what I would do in my own writing is I would make myself an outline about a particular chapter or page, and I just jot down on a post-it note, believe it or not, and I'd stick it to a page that I hand wrote just of ideas, cold ideas, and then every page I would just address it, what was on the post-it note, because the shuffling of these index cards would just drive me crazy. So if you have a system that works for you, do whatever it is and just have it work for you. A few of you asked me APA style or MLA style rather, excuse me. I don't mind which style you use because that's dependent on the discipline. So you're going to make those choices. Is somewhere around week 2, week 3, we talked about MLA, APA, and I need you to do that to make that decision for yourself. Also, of course, peer editing is very important. You will need to have the final paper peer edited, and that will be very, very important. And we'll need to know who peer edited your work, so that will be very important as well. And anything I can do to help you with your research, I'm thrilled to be called upon. A few of you have called me on the phone. One of you emailed me. I'm happy to help. I'm right here, and that's my job. And so I hope that you continue to call on me if you need my assistance. And then finally, I had one final thought about technology and all these discussions we've been having in the room, which have been rather vigorous. And it's really so amazing. You know, I was talking to a colleague the other day about his take on technology and relationships and intimacy, and he shared with me something that I thought was rather sweet, so I'll share it with you and see what you think of it. He had shared with me that when he was deployed overseas, he's my age, he's close to 50, when he was deployed overseas, his daughter, who's about your age, maybe 20, 21, 22, gave birth to his first grandchild. And lo and behold, somehow or another, they were able to set up Skype in the delivery room and then Skype at the Army post where he was stationed. And he was available to watch the birth of his first grandchild vis-a-vis Skype. And he said that even though some of the parts of the transmission were grainy, he said that it was a place in his personal life, he said that he just would never forget, because here he was thousands of miles away. And he said something very interesting. He said that when his daughter was born, the mother of his now grandchild, he said he wasn't even allowed in the delivery room because back even in the 1980s, which I do remember those days when I had one of my children, sometimes the dads weren't allowed in the delivery room, so they really missed everything. and having a baby was considered not really an intimate thing, but rather a matter of medical business that was a private matter. And so the men were ushered usually to a delivery room without really much participation towards the end. And he said that here he even missed the birth of his daughter because they didn't allow men in the room. And here he said he had this full experience watching his own child give birth, and he said that he just was in complete awe. And I guess the beauty of this Skype situation is he was able to tape the delivery so he can watch it over and over again. Now, I don't know how thrilled his daughter must be that he can watch this over and over again, but certainly it's a very intimate way of connecting with people. Also, somebody else shared with me something I never thought about that I'd like you to answer in this week's chat, week 7 chat. And so this might be a good time for you to get a pen and paper. But she had told me, she's about your age, in her 20s someplace, and she told me that her grandma is in the midst of dying from breast cancer, and her grandma's in the hospital, and every day they're able to Skype and visit with one another. And she said that they have more of even a robust relationship because they have this distance between them, and they realize this is really their last goodbye, as her grandma is really not doing very well. Or maybe you could look at it another way. She is doing well, and she's going to transition on to another life because in this person's faith, they believe in an afterlife. So I guess it isn't so bad after all. So she said that when they were together in person, when her grandma was well, they would argue frequently, and they'd have these vigorous discussions about politics and feminism and women's lib, and they would debate each other, and she said not in a friendly way all the time. She said now that her grandmother's passing away, the Skype, she said, is precious because she can actually tape the conversations that they have with one another. I mean, who really sits at a kitchen table with a family member and tapes their own conversations? Maybe I should have done that with one of my children. He used to drive me crazy. He'd say something and then say he didn't say it. Anyway, it's amazing how technology and intimacy can really go hand in hand in these two examples I gave you from birth and death. So what I would like you to do in week chat, this is how I'm going to know if you're watching the lecturecast, I would like you in week number 7 to certainly give me an example where Skype can come in rather handy for life's intimate events. And if you can think of an example, and please present it to us in week 7 chat. So I'll leave you now with those thoughts. And it's always a pleasure to have you in our virtual classroom and to be able to have dialogue with you in the room, in chat. And I appreciate all of the work each of you are doing. I wish you well always, and have a good week. Good night to you. Bye.